let's take our decision making to the horse track and see how we might or might not make money. So if we look at a horse race, and we're going to do a simple example of three different horses. So there's horse A, horse B, and horse C. The people that are betting, we have par mutual betting in horses, so the people that are betting are setting the odds for the horses. In the betting, there's 50% of the money on horse A, there's 40% of the money on horse B, and 10% of the money on horse C. Now, to convert those probabilities or percentages of payoffs into odds, we use the formula probability divided by 1 minus the probability equal the odds. So in this case, we clearly know that there's a 50% or 1-to-1 probability for horse A, and 40%, if we put it in the formula, is 3-to-2, and 10% in the formula is 9-to-1. So we can see the odds based on the betting by the other people in the horse track. So in par mutual betting, obviously fair game is to take all the bets, and whoever bet on the horse that wins, they get to split the money of the other people. So for example, if you look at it in this case, 50% of the tickets or 50% of the money is bet on horse A, and B and C would lose, so the 50% of the money they bet would go to the players that bet on 50% of A. Similarly, in a 3-to-2 bet, there is 40% of the money, 40% of the betting is on player B, and 60% of the betting is on A and C. If B wins, 60% of the money, or 3, would go to player B, so the odds are 3-to-2, 60 over 40. And if you look at C, it's simple that 90% of the money was bet against C, and 10% of the money was bet in favor of C. So 90% against, 1 for the person who wants to take the long shot. Well, this is how the betting is done. The way that you should choose your horse is to create your own handicap or your own line. And you want to assess the percentage chance of each horse winning in the race. So you create your own line, and you look at horse A, and you think there's a 50% chance of horse A winning, and say a 33% chance of horse B, you don't like it as much, and then in horse C is a 16% chance. Obviously there's rounding error here for 100%, because one of the horses is going to win. So if you look at this in terms of handicapping, and handicapping horses or picking stocks or any of this is, of course, being able to set these odds correctly. So I'm not saying I set the odds correctly, I'm just saying this is, if you set the odds like this, if whoever set the odds like this, if this is the way they looked at it, they can convert these probabilities into odds so they can see which bet they want to make. We can turn this back into a roulette situation. So 50%, of course, is a 1-to-1 odds. 33%, if you put it in the formula, is 3-to-1. And 16%, similar to our dice example in a previous lesson, is a 5-to-1 bet. So now the question is, this is the line, and this is your handicap. If your line is this, and the available bets are this, where do you bet? Well, even money and even money, there's no advantage, there's no edge to you there. If you think the odds are 3-to-1, and it only pays 3-to-2, the odds with the house, you don't want to bet on this. But if you think the chances of winning are 5-to-1, and it pays 9-to-1, this is much like a roulette bet that pays 38-to-1, and you feel the odds are only 37-to-1. The odds are in your favor. It should only be 37-to-1. They're paying 38-to-1. So this is where you should put your money, because it should only win 16% of the time, but it's paying off more than that. It's paying off 9-to-1. So you're getting better odds than you should get based on your handicapping. So, of course, you have to be really good at handicapping, and handicapping is putting the correct price or the correct risk on each different horse in the race, and then simply choosing the one that is mispriced. This is called mispricing the risk. Now, why don't people bet or make more money in horses? Well, because the house or the track or the bookie has to make money. So they don't set the odds at fair value. They want an edge. So if they had a 50-50 bet on horse A and they took the money that was bet on B and C and simply give it to A, that would be a fair bet for A, and it would be a fair bet for B and C, except there would be no profit in it for the house. So what do? They increase the percentages and ask you to bet a little bit more than you should. So for example, they could up A to 60%, B to 50%, and C to 20%. That would change the odds to 4 to 6 and even money. And what's 20% of 6 would be 4 to 1, right? 4 to 1. So they change the odds that are available. The odds that are available from what would be a fair game. So if you add up these percentages, you can see that there's $130 being bet for a payoff of 100. So the payoff is less than the money bet. Well, if the payoff is less than the money bet, then for every $130 that the track bets, or that people bet, 50 plus, or 60 plus 50 plus 20 is 130, when it should be 50 plus 40 plus 10 for 100, the track obviously makes $30. For every $130 bet in this scenario, the track only pays out 100, which means they make $30 on every $130 bet. So in this case, you have to look at not what the true odds are, because you're never going to see the true odds. They're not going to tell you. You can only see the odds that are available, the line that is available at the track. So what you're trying to compare to is your prediction of 5 to 1 versus the available 4 to 1, and even though it's a good bet, that if the payoff is supposed to be really 9 to 1, you think it's 5 to 1, the track has set the odds at 4 to 1, you still can't say it's a good bet. You know, the 38 to 1 for the 9 to 1 bet, the 37 to 1 is a fair bet to you. The 4 to 1 is back to the 35 to 1 roulette bet. So to put it in terms of roulette, the 9 to 1, if that was the odds that are available, is like betting on roulette at 38 to 1 when the odds are clearly, you believe, 37 to 1. That's the odds in your favor. But that bet isn't available because the track has to make money. The bet that's available is 4 to 1, which is more like a roulette bet of 35 to 1, and you think it's 37 to 1, so this, of course, is a bad bet. So even though you've handicapped it different than people are betting, that doesn't mean that the odds are available to you because of the markup or the profit for the house. So when you think of risks and rewards, the only thing you can do is assess the probabilities that you believe are going to happen and then compare them to what's available. And so always do your own handicapping. This is your own decision on what the probabilities are, and then compare them to what's available in the marketplace. If it's a bad bet, 35 to 1, when it should be 38 to 1, or excuse me, 37 to 1, don't bet. If the market is giving you 38 to 1 on a 37 to 1 bet, you should bet. So when you think about risk versus reward, you have to think about the risk. The probabilities are the reward. The percentage chance of winning is the risk. You're always trying to balance risk versus reward.